Students, good morning to you this Wednesday morning. Hope you're doing well. And we got a lot to do today. We're actually going to get into some two-column proofs. Boy, I know students hate that, so no cheering there, but work hard. I think you'll be okay. I'll walk you through this, and I will try to help you the best that I can. I forgot to make announcements yesterday, so I apologize for that. So let me quickly make some announcements. You might have already turned it in, Ashley, I don't know, but last week you were absent, so you owe me an incomplete from last week. Please get that turned in. Tara, I believe you were absent one day this week. If you've not turned all your homework in so far, make sure you do that. Tara, then also, the rest of you students, I forgot to tell you to turn in yesterday's homework. Well, yesterday, Tuesday, I forgot to tell you to turn in Monday's homework. So make sure today, Wednesday, you turn in your homework for Monday and Tuesday if you've not done that yet. There will be a quiz this Friday. There will be a test next week. I will do the best I can to come in the day before the test next week. Cannot promise I can do that. It'll be very difficult to do, but I will try to do that. It's a Wednesday, so we're not going to have any activities. We've got to get started right away. I am going to teach for a very long time, so please understand that. But tomorrow I'm not going to teach. So a lot of notes today. Hang in there. Keep your heads propped up. Don't fall asleep. Stand up if you need to, whatever it takes. Take some notes for a really long time. And tomorrow we will not have notes. You'll do homework tomorrow the entire hour. And I'll have a video for you to watch tomorrow to help you with your homework in case you're confused. Okay? All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and ramble while you're copying this down. Please get into your notes right away. Again, for the second time, work hard. It is going to be a long class period, a lot of notes, but I will not teach tomorrow. So a little give and a little take. All right, we're going to look at using congruent triangles, lesson 5.5, and today is the 16th. Today is the 16th. Give you a second to copy that down. Okay, write this in your notes, would you please? I want to show you something. If I told you that those two triangles right there were congruent, ABC and MPX, there are a lot of things that you could say, correct? You can just watch this. You don't need to write this down unless you need to. That's totally up to you. We've learned all this. I'm just reviewing. But let me go back a page. If I told you these two triangles were congruent, you could say, well, angle A is congruent to angle M. You could say angle B is congruent to angle P. You could say angle C is congruent to angle X. You could say side AB is congruent to side MP. You could say side BC is congruent to side PX. And you could say that side AC is congruent to side MX. Okay? Now, Mr. Earhart, you've told us all that. What are you trying to say? Students, please don't miss this next part. It's so important. Anytime that I tell you that triangles are congruent, you can immediately assume that all of the parts are congruent. Now, in geometry, you heard this last semester, I know, because I talked to Megan about this a couple times, but you heard the CP, CTC. And what that means is corresponding parts. You do not need to write this down. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. And that's what I just said. When two triangles are what? Congruent, then all of their parts are congruent. You need to know that today, because today we're going to start proving that, let's say that angle A is congruent to angle M, and you first have to prove the two triangles are congruent, and once you prove the two triangles are congruent, you can then state that different parts are congruent. Okay? So you did not have to write this down. Make sure you have the heading written down. I just want to go over this again and remind you of that. And now let's jump ahead. Would you please copy this in your notes? Let's start off with this problem right here. I want to talk to you about this, see if I can kind of get you to think a little bit early on a Wednesday morning. Okay? Triangle ABC, triangle DEF. Now, what if I asked you this question? All right, you might want to write this down. What if I asked you this question? What if I asked you, what would you, Megan, Kate, Ashley, Tara, what would you do if I asked you to prove that angle B is congruent to angle E? Now look, here's angle B right here. Notice there's no marks, no red marks. And here's angle E. How in the world am I going to prove that angle B is congruent to angle E? Well, I know a way. hey, if I can first state that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF, if I could state that, then look at angle B right here. See angle B right there? Here lines up with angle E. If I could state that these two triangles were congruent, then I could state that B is congruent to E. So what I'm trying to show you here, and what pretty much the whole class period is about, is we're going to first today state that triangles are congruent, and then once we state they're congruent, we can state their parts are congruent. So we're not doing a two-column proof right now. Just let me show you. We're just kind of using some common sense and some reasoning skills. I have an angle, side, angle, angle, side, angle, congruent to angle, side, angle. So I can state that these two triangles right here are congruent by what reason? Angle, side, angle. Now students, I have been telling you all semester it's real important how you write your congruencies. Angle A came first, that has one slash, so angle D came first over here. Angle B came second, it has no slashes, so angle E came second over here. Angle C was third, two slashes, so F came last, two slashes. So I can state these two triangles are congruent by what reason? Angle, side, angle. And now I can state what? I can state that angle B, here it is, second letter over, is congruent to angle E. And you know what the reason is? This is where we use these letters, CPCTC. In other words, after I state two triangles are congruent, I can then state that their corresponding parts are congruent. There it is. I just did it. All right. So that's the kind of stuff we're going to do today. This next sentence is so important. Please write this down. So important. Sometimes, in order to prove that parts of two triangles are congruent, you need to first prove that the triangles are congruent. Okay, that should make sense. So once you state that two triangles are congruent, you can then state that all of their parts are also congruent. So please write that down, a real important sentence. Okay, students, continuing on. Now I did mention to you that we are going to do two proofs today. We're also going to do two other problems. So let's just take our time, work through this, and I think we'll be just fine. Please copy this in your notes. I'll give you a minute to do this while I'm rambling. In the red, you have your given, okay? AB and CD bisect at point M, okay? And we're going to prove that angle A, this angle right here, is congruent to this angle right here. All right, that's our goal. Now don't forget what we just talked about. We're first going to have to somehow prove that this triangle here is congruent to this triangle here. Now once we prove that those two triangles are congruent, we can then state that their corresponding parts are congruent. And by the way, don't forget how to prove triangles are congruent. I'm not going to leave these up, but you should know this by now. Angle, angle, side, angle, side, angle, side, 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 angle, side, and hypotenuse leg, but we can't use that because we don't have right triangles. So please keep in mind all of those things that we've learned. Okay, so while I'm rambling, hopefully you're copying all this down. Copy down your given off to the side. Copy down what you're proving off to the side. It's always, of course, imperative that you have the diagram, so please copy that down. And then your statements column and your reasons column. Now, here's how I teach two-column proofs. First of all, you pick up your given and you put it over here. So here's AB right here. Do you see that? And here's CD. Students, what do they do to each other? They bisect each other. They bisect each other right here. So what that means is this point right here cuts AB right in half. So if AB is cut in half, then that means this segment here, I'm going to switch colors, AM has to be congruent to MB, because this point's right in the middle. But hold it, AB and CD both bisect at point M, so that means CD is also bisected, okay? And so that means that CM, this segment right here is congruent to this segment here. Okay, so I'm just picking stuff up and putting it on the triangle. Hey, I bet you guys see this already. This is so cool. Look, remember when two lines intersect, their vertical angles are congruent? Remember that? Wow, there we go. Well, look at this. Is this angle right here not a vertical angle to this? Now you say, well, Mr. Earhart, that's not in your given. I know, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I think I can see now somewhere in my proof over here, I'm going to use side, angle, side, congruent to side, angle, side to state that the two triangles are congruent. And once I state that the two triangles are congruent, I can then state that A is congruent to B. So anyways, pick up your given. Here's your given. Pick up your given and put it on your diagram. Okay, now moving on. The first thing you want to do from there, like I've taught you, is lay out your plan of attack. Well, I really haven't taught you. I'm teaching you today how to do these. Lay out your plan of attack. It looks like to me somewhere in my proof I'm going to have to state that AM is congruent to MB, right? Somewhere I've got to state that. It's not in my given. And somewhere I'm going to have to state what? DM is congruent to MC. This and this. That's nowhere in my given. And somewhere I'm going to allow you guys to put numbers in for angles if you want to. The students at my other schools really like that idea, so I'm going to put a little 1 here for angle 1 and a little 2. I'm going to let you do that, okay? So somewhere I've got to state that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. So somewhere I've got to do that so I can then state that my triangles are congruent. So that's my plan of attack. Well, I've taught you guys in my class. You're more than welcome to just put a line right here and then put given over here. All right. I see no need for you to rewrite all of this down here. All right. Well, let's continue on. I can state that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. Sure I can. I can state that. What's the reason for that, students? Remember, we've learned this. Vertical angles are congruent. So cross that off. Now, I could state AM is congruent to MB. And in that exact same step, I can also state that DM is congruent to MC. Do you know why I can state that in the same step? Because the reason's the same. Definition of a segment bisector. Now you should have learned that first semester. The definition, when we say a segment is bisected, that means it's cut in half. So the definition of segment bisector allows me to state this. Well, I've got it. I've stated in my statements over here, I've stated this side's congruent to this side, I've stated this side's congruent to this side, and I've stated this angle is congruent to this angle. So I've stated everything that I need to state. So now I can go ahead and say what I've been wanting to say all along. Triangle, now watch how you write it, be careful. Triangle ADM is congruent to triangle, now let's see, here's A. Notice A is the angle right here on the side that has 1 slash and the number angle. So here's my 1 slash side number angle, and here's B over here. So A corresponds with B. D is the angle at the end of the 2 slash sides, so over here that would be C, so C comes next, and then of course the only angle left would be M. Now, how can I state that those two triangles are congruent? Side, angle, side. Side, angle, side. And then lastly, step 5. Because I've stated that these two triangles are congruent, I can now state, look right here, do you see, what am I trying to prove? I'm trying to prove that A is congruent to B. So come down here, and if I look, I see my first angle here is A, and my next angle is B, so I can state angle A is congruent to angle B. And you're welcome to put CPCTC. That's what most textbooks use. Or if you don't like that, you can just simply say corresponding parts are congruent. I don't care. Either way's fine. So look that over. You might have to rewind the video a little bit, check that out, but that is a standard two-column proof. These are not easy, and I understand that, and I feel your pain, but we're going to work through these throughout the semester. Okay, I'd like you to copy this next problem down. Now, we're not going to do a two-column proof on this, so just relax. The first thing I want to teach you is to split these triangles up. And now I want to kind of teach you how to use just kind of a plan of attack and kind of lay things out, okay? So please take a second and copy this into your notes. Write down your given and write down what you're proving, and then draw this diagram the best you can. All right, let me get my eraser out here, and I think, see, I was hoping I had this done already, but it doesn't look like I do. I thought that I did. So I'll have to draw this real quick. Okay, let me get my pen ready here, and let's go here, here, and here. All right, sorry about that, students. Okay, so what I want you to learn to do is sometimes when triangles are overlapping, it's easier to go ahead and split them up. Now, it's not the best drawing, but that's supposed to be K, K, J, N. Okay, K, J, N. Do you see it? K, down to J, over to N. All right, that triangle there. It's very important you know how to split these things up. All right, and then the other triangle, of course, will be right here, and it would look like this. And that would be a K right here, an L right down here, and an M right here. Do you see it up here? K to M, M to L, and L back up to K, and there it is. I'm telling you, students, it's really helpful to split up your triangles. And now here's what I've taught you to do. If we were doing a two-column proof, and we're not, but if we were, you would take your KJ congruent to KL. So here's KJ, put a slash here. Here's KL, put a slash here. And then angle J is congruent to angle L. So angle J is congruent to angle L. All right? Now, see if this makes sense. Please watch this carefully. Do you see how this triangle here has angle K right there? And then look how this triangle right here has that same angle right there. So in other words, angle K right here is the exact same angle as angle K. They fall on top of each other. These two triangles share that angle. So this angle here, really we should put two slashes. This angle here is congruent to this angle here. So I think you now see my plan of attack, do you not? I'm trying to prove that this side, NJ, is congruent to ML. Well, first you have to state that this triangle here is congruent to this triangle here. And once you state that, then you can state that NJ is congruent to ML. So with that in mind, do you see what we have? We have an angle and a side and an angle congruent to an angle, a side, and an angle. Now we're not doing the full blown out two-column proof. My point is, you could definitely state that triangle JKN is congruent to triangle, now be careful, J is first, that has one slash, so L comes first. K is second, K has two slashes, so K comes second, and then N, of course, corresponds with M. I can state that these two triangles are congruent by what reason? Angle, side, angle. And now, what do you want to prove? NJ is congruent to ML. Let's see if we have that. Here's NJ right here. Do you see NJ? Let's see if that lines up with ML over here. Yep, it sure does. So once you state that these two triangles are congruent, you could then state that NJ is congruent to ML. And by the way, I am not that picky. If you had JN is congruent to LM. Some textbooks are really picky. I am totally fine with that. That's not a big deal to me. So we didn't do a two-column proof. I just wanted to, number one, teach you how to split up your triangles. And then number two, I wanted to go over again how you pick up your given. You put it on your diagram, then you lay out your plan of attack, then you would do your two-column proof. Okay? But the whole idea, again, this whole hour is using congruent triangles. That's what we're going to do throughout the class period. Okay, I would like you to copy this problem in your notes. If you would, please copy this into your notes. Here's the diagram I would like you to write. Here's your given, and here's your proof part. All right. Please go ahead and do that, and when you're done, I'm going to go ahead and split my triangles up. I'm going to make them a little smaller so we have more room. But once you're done, and again, I'd rather have you pause the video. You can always slow me down, but you can't speed me up. So I'm going to keep moving, and you can pause the video if you need to. I think you can see what I'm doing here. I'm taking this triangle and I'm splitting it up into two different triangles. And hopefully you see where I'm getting all of that. QPR, here's QP over to R. So there's that triangle right there. And then of course the second triangle is over here. So there's my two triangles. Alright, you don't always need to split triangles up. Think back to the two-column proof that we did right here. We didn't split those up because they were just touching at one little point right there. But when triangles are overlapping, I strongly encourage you to go ahead and split them up. The next thing I've taught you to do is to pick up your given and write it on your diagram. So angle SPR, here we go, S down to P over to R, put a mark right there, is congruent to QRP. So Q, R, P. So put a mark right here. There we go. And then angle Q is congruent to angle S. So put 2 marks here, angle Q, and 2 marks here, angle S. There we go. We picked up our given and we put it over here. Now students, we're going to have to prove, look what they want us to prove. They want us to prove that QPR, I'm going to put a dot right here, that angle right there, is congruent to this angle over here, PRS. Now the only way to prove that those two angles are congruent is to somehow prove that the two triangles are what? Congruent. And once we state that they're congruent, we can then state that their corresponding parts are congruent. So now we're laying out our plan of attack, okay? All right, well I see I've got an angle and an angle congruent to an angle and an angle. Well, the only thing I know that would work with two angles is angle side angle, or angle angle side, or angle side angle. Wow, well let's see. Do they share any sides up here? Hey, they do share a side. Look, here's triangle QPR. It has this side right here. Do you see that? Here it is. And it has this side here. I'm going to switch to the color blue. And now look at this triangle over here. Do you see how they share that side right there? So, I can definitely state then that this side here, PR, is congruent to this. So I'm laying out my plan of attack here. So it looks like to me my plan of attack is to use what? Is that angle side angle, or is that angle angle side? Looks like angle angle side to me. And so our plan of attack is going to be, and we're not doing a two-column proof, but if we were, our plan of attack would be to state that Q is congruent to S and that R is congruent to P, these two right here, and then that PR is congruent to PR, right? And then once we state that, we could say triangle PQR is congruent to triangle RSP. And then once we state that, we can definitely state that. Now look right here for a second, students. Don't become confused. When we say angle QPR, what's the middle letter? P? Yeah. So here's P right here. And what's the middle letter right here? R. and that's R right here. So after we state that, we can definitely state that these two angles are congruent. So again, I'm not really doing proofs. I'm trying to teach you how to A, split overlapping triangles up, B, pick up your given and write it on the diagram, and then C, lay out your plan of attack and then get your two-column proof ready. Okay? All right, let's move on to the last problem. So we're almost done. You've listened very well. You've probably had to pause the video some. And if you have a little bit of free time, it's very hard as a teacher with doing videos to manage the time perfectly. But I do think this next problem will take a little bit of time, so do understand that. But if you finish early, then just work on something else, and we'll have homework tomorrow. Okay, copy this down. This is our last problem of the day. We are going to do a big two-column proof, so please copy this down. Students, again, I would rather have you slow me down than speed me up, so I'm going to keep moving. Pause the video if you need to. Okay, copy all this down. Now, what have I taught you to do? First of all, if you have overlapping triangles, let's go ahead and split them up. So I've done that right here for you. And I know my triangle here is a little crooked, but I think you get the idea. Triangle ABC is right here. Call that triangle number 1. And then triangle DEC is over here. We'll call that triangle number 2. Okay? So there we go. So the first thing I've taught you to do is split your triangles up. Okay, next I've taught you to pick up your given and put that onto your diagram. So I have angle ABC, ABC, and that'd be that angle right there. I'm going to go ahead and switch colors so you can see it better. Angle ABC is right there. It's congruent to DEC, so DEC. So these two angles are congruent there and there. What else is our given? CB, so put a slash right here, is congruent to CE. So put a slash right here. And then we're trying to prove that this side here is congruent to this side here. Now you know what we're going to have to do, students. We're going to have to prove that this triangle here is congruent to this triangle here. And then once we've done that, we can state that their corresponding parts are congruent. So let's lay out a plan of attack. I think I see it already. We have an angle congruent to an angle. We have a side congruent to a side. So we have an angle and a side. The only other thing I can think of is angle, side, angle. That's it. And so with that in mind, do you notice if these two triangles share something? I notice right here they share angle C. Look, here's triangle ABC. It comes up and goes like that. And then here's the other triangle. It comes over like that. They share that angle right there. And so because they share that angle, I can definitely state that this angle right here, C, is congruent to this angle here. So there's my plan of attack. My plan of attack is to use angle, side, angle to prove that the two triangles are congruent. And then once I prove the two triangles are congruent, I can then state this right here. So here we go. Here's what I have to do. Somewhere in this proof over here, okay, somewhere over here, I'm going to have to state that angle ABC is congruent to angle DEC. Somewhere over here, I'm going to have to state that, okay? And then somewhere I'm going to have to state that CB is congruent to EC. And then somewhere I'm going to have to state angle C is congruent to angle C. Once I state those things there, then I can use angle, side, angle. All right, so here we go. What's the first thing we do? Well, we write our given. All right, now in this case, I'm going to very quickly ask you to bear with me while I try to do something I probably shouldn't try to do. I'll probably mess this up. Yeah, I can't do that. This is, okay. I was going to try to cut and paste this right here, but that won't work. But I usually don't write the given. I'm going to this time just so you can see it. You do not need to do this if you don't want to. I'm going to go ahead and write the given just so you can see it down here. Do you see that in the given? Hey, look, isn't that one of the things I said I had to state? Well, cross that one off. I did it. Now, what else is in my given? CB congruent to CE, right? Hey, that's something else I had to put. I did that. I've only got one thing left to state. Now, angle C, congruent to angle C, that's not in my given, so I can't put it as a reason for given. But why can I state that angle C is congruent to angle C? Remember, whenever you're stating that something is congruent to something and they're the same thing, we call it the reflexive property of congruency. I let my students just put reflexive. Reflexive is totally fine. And so, reflexive property. Now I've stated all of these things, so I'm ready to state that my triangles are congruent. Triangle A, B, C. Now be careful here, is congruent to triangle. Okay, A's first. A's up here with no marks. What angle has no marks? D. So D comes first. What's second over here? B. B has one mark. E has one mark. And then angle C's last. That has 2 marks. Angle C has 2 marks. There we go. You stated ABC is congruent to DEC. And what was your reason? What did we say? Look at your picture. Wasn't it angle, side, angle? All right, very good. And now let's go on to number 4. And now that we've stated that the two triangles are congruent, we can definitely now state this right here. Because look, do you see AB, the first 2 letters right here? What's the first 2 letters over here? Look at that. Sweet. They line up, don't they? So I can state that AB is congruent to DE. Now you're welcome to put CPCTC, that's totally fine. Or you can just put, if you don't like that, then don't put that. If you don't like that, just put corresponding parts are what? Congruent. Either way is fine. Look at that. Just a little baby 4-step proof. Pretty simple, okay? I hope that you've listened well. I hope that you're working hard. It is a Wednesday night. I hope that you don't have a lot of class time left. I really want this to be a good, thorough class. But if you do, work on something else. Get caught up on material that you need to get caught up on. You will have a quiz on Friday. You will have homework tomorrow. When you walk in the door tomorrow, I'm going to first go over the quiz so you'll know what's on the quiz on Friday so you can study, and then you'll do homework the rest of the class hour. Okay? All right, have a good rest of the day.